You know how life sometimes feels like you're just juggling like a million things at once?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, imagine doing that while raising a family completely on your own.
Yeah, that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into something specific meant to help. Solo parent leave.
Right. We've been looking through all the details, the regulations around this leave, and our aim really is to pull out the most important bits for you.
For everyone listening, yeah. Whether you happen to be a solo parent yourself, or maybe you know someone who is, or perhaps you're just interested in workplace benefits and employee rights.
Mm,
And speaking of understanding, here's something that, well, it might surprise you. There isn't just one definition of who qualifies.
no, not at all.
There are like over a dozen specific legal situations. So, okay, let's try and unpack this. First things first, what exactly is solo parent leave?
So basically, solo parent leave is a benefit
Mm.
for employees. Paid time off specifically for those raising kids on their own. The idea is to allow them time for, parental duties where their physical presence is really needed, or it would significantly benefit the child.
Right, helping them balance work and, well, the huge job of single-handedly managing a family.
Precisely. It's about that balance.
So, when we talk about this leave, how much time are we actually talking about? How many days?
The entitlement is up to 7 working days per year.
7 days. Okay.
And crucially, this is with full pay.
Full pay meaning?
Well, full pay here means their basic salary plus any mandatory allowances from the regional wage boards, those government bodies setting minimum wages.
Ah, okay. So the pay during the leave can't dip below the minimum wage for their area.
Exactly right. That's the floor.
7 days with full pay. I mean, that really could make a difference, couldn't it?
Definitely.
Now, what happens if someone doesn't use all 7 days in a year? Can they, like, save them for next year or maybe get cash instead?
Generally, no. The rule is that solo parent leave is typically forfeitable and non-cumulative.
Meaning, use it or lose it.
Pretty much. Yeah. If the days aren't used within that calendar year, they usually don't roll over. And you generally can't convert them to cash either.
Okay.
The exception would be if there's something specific written into, say, a collective bargaining agreement, a union contract.
Right. The CBA could potentially change it. So it's really designed for immediate needs within the year.
That's the primary intention, yes.
But I think you mentioned there was a kind of exception or a consequence if it's denied.
Yes, that's important. If an employer improperly denies a solo parent this leave they're entitled to,
Uh-huh.
those denied days can actually be used to calculate financial damages the employer might owe.
Wow. Okay. So there are teeth to enforcing this. Employers really need to follow the rules.
They do. It underscores the seriousness of the entitlement.
Right. Now, let's get into that list you mentioned, the over a dozen ways someone qualifies. It sounds incredibly broad.
It really is. The law tries to capture the many, many different ways someone might end up being a solo parent. We can sort of group them into categories. The first main group covers people who end up solely responsible for their kids because of certain life events, like giving birth as a result of rape.
Right.
And notably, this applies even if there hasn't been a final criminal conviction, as long as the mother is the one providing all the care.
That's a really sensitive and vital point. What other situations fit in this first category?
Also things like the death of a spouse, or if a spouse is detained or in prison for at least 3 months,
3 months. Okay.
or if a spouse has a physical or mental incapacity,
Yeah.
and that needs to be certified by a doctor.
Makes sense.
Then you have legal separation, or even just de facto separation, meaning they're separated in practice if it's been at least 6 months, and the parent applying has sole custody.
6 month separation plus sole custody. Got it. What else?
Annulment of the marriage, or a declaration that the marriage was void from the start again, requires sole custody. Divorce also counts, depending on the relevant laws.
Okay.
And finally, in this group, there's abandonment. If one spouse leaves the family for at least 6 months, the remaining parent qualifies.
That covers a lot of really difficult circumstances already. But you said there were other categories too?
Yes, several more. The second category is quite specific. It relates to families of overseas Filipino workers, OFWs.
Ah, right.
If the OFW is in what's considered a low or semi-skilled job, and they've been abroad continuously for at least 12 months,
A full year. Okay.
then their spouse back home, or another family member, or even the guardian looking after the kids, can qualify for solo parent leave. assuming they meet other legal requirements.
That's a really important acknowledgement of the OFW situation, isn't it? The parent working so far away.
It is. It recognizes that unique family dynamic.
Okay, what's the third category?
The third one's fairly straightforward. Unmarried parents, mothers or fathers, who are raising their child or children entirely on their own.
Simple enough. And the fourth?
Fourth category includes legal guardians, adoptive parents, or foster parents, provided they are the sole person providing care and support for the child.
So, emphasizing the caregiving role, not just biological ties.
Exactly. It's about who's doing the parenting solely.
Makes sense. And category 5?
This one's interesting because it extends to other relatives. It covers any relative up to the fourth civil degree of kinship.
Fourth degree. What does that mean in simple terms?
It includes people like first cousins, great aunts, great uncles. If they step in to raise a child because the parents or the original solo parent died, disappeared, abandoned the child, or have been gone for at least 6 months.
Wow.
And importantly, this category specifically calls out solely grandparents who are senior citizens if they're the sole caregiver for their grandkids who are unmarried, jobless, and 22 or under.
Or older if they have a disability, right?
Yes, exactly. Or older if they have a disability that prevents self-support.
That really does cast a wide net to support children. Okay, was there one more category?
Yes, the sixth. This one recognizes a pregnant woman who is solely responsible for the care and support of the child or children she's expecting.
That feels quite forward-thinking, acknowledging the responsibility even before the baby arrives.
It does. It covers the period of pregnancy itself.
Okay, so we've really detailed who can be a solo parent under this law. What about the definition of the child or dependent they're caring for? What are the rules there?
Good question. So for this leave, the child or dependent generally needs to be living with the solo parent and dependent on them for support, financial and otherwise.
Okay, living with and dependent.
And they usually need to be unmarried, unemployed, and 22 years old or younger.
Usually 22 or younger.
Yes, but there's that key exception again. If the child is over 22 but can't support themselves because of a mental or physical disability, they still count as a dependent.
Right, so it focuses on actual dependency and acknowledges lifelong care needs sometimes. Okay, so let's say someone fits the criteria. They're a solo parent with a qualifying child. How do they actually use this leave? What's the process?
Well, the first step is communication. They need to notify their employer within a reasonable period that they intend to take the leave.
It makes sense. Give notice.
And they also need to present a valid solo parent identification card.
Ah, the ID card. Where do they get that?
That's issued by the Department of Social Welfare and Development, the DSWD, in their local city or municipality.
Okay, so getting that official ID is key.
It is. And there's also a point about government employees. They might be eligible for flexible working hours.
Oh, interesting. How does that work?
It's at the discretion of the head of their agency, but critically, it shouldn't reduce their total weekly work hours.
Yeah.
Just allow some flexibility in scheduling.
Got it. So clear communication, the DSWD ID, sounds straightforward enough. Now, how does the solo parent leave fit in with other types of leave, like, say, maternity leave?
Ah, yes, that's a really significant interaction. A female employee who qualifies as a solo parent gets an extra 15 days of maternity leave.
Extra, on top of the standard.
Yes, on top of the standard 105 days provided by the expanded maternity leave law for a live birth. So a solo mother gets a total of 120 days.
Wow, 120 days of paid maternity leave. That's substantial support.
It really is. A huge help during that critical postpartum period.
What about other common leave like the service incentive leave, the SIL?
Yep, good point. Solo parents who've worked for their employer for at least a year are still entitled to their 5 days of service incentive leave.
In addition to the solo parent leave.
Absolutely. It's on top of the 7 days of solo parent leave. They're separate entitlements.
That really shows a commitment to providing layered support, doesn't it?
It does. The law aims to be quite comprehensive in that regard.
So thinking about the workplace more broadly, are there other things employers need to keep in mind specifically for solo parent employees?
Yes, definitely. Employers are actually mandated to provide a flexible work schedule for solo parents.
Mandated, so they have to.
Well, there's a condition, as long as it doesn't hurt the productivity of that employee or the company overall.
Ah, okay. The productivity caveat.
Right. And employers can apply for an exemption from this requirement from the Department of Labor and Employment, the DLE, but they need strong, justifiable reasons.
And what does flexible work schedule mean in practice?
It generally means they can vary their arrival and departure times, Maybe, without affecting the core hours everyone needs to be present for. Telecommuting or work-from-home arrangements could also be part of this, based on agreement.
So the law encourages finding ways to accommodate their needs. What about fairness, preventing bias?
Crucial point. The law explicitly forbids employers from discriminating against solo parents
In what ways?
in terms of employment conditions, salary, opportunities for promotion, training, any benefits, basically. Their status as a solo parent shouldn't be held against them. And furthermore, the law actually suggests employers should give priority to solo parents in certain contexts, though what priority means isn't always spelled out in detail.
Interesting. An encouragement, at least. So, important protections there. Now, life changes, circumstances change. What happens if someone stops being a solo parent? Do the benefits just stop?
Yes, generally, the benefits and protections under the Solo Parents Welfare Act cease when the person's situation changes, such that they're no longer solely responsible for the child's upbringing.
Okay.
But the law had some nuance here. For example, just getting occasional help or, say, seasonal gifts from the other parent doesn't automatically disqualify someone.
If it doesn't amount to proper, regular support.
Exactly. If it doesn't meet the legal standards for support under the family code. And similarly, just because parents were never married doesn't automatically mean one of them is a solo parent if, in practice, they're actually sharing care and support responsibilities.
So it boils down to the reality on the ground. Who is really carrying the primary load?
That's the core principle, yes. Who bears the main responsibility for the child's well-being day to day?
Right. This has been incredibly thorough, so much detail in this law. If we were to kind of boil it down, what are the absolute key takeaways for listeners?
I'd say first, solo parent leave is a really vital support. It's there for a very diverse group of people raising kids alone. It offers that crucial paid time off those 7 days and pushes for workplace adjustments like flexible schedules and protection from discrimination.
And that definition of solo parent is much wider than many might think.
Much wider, yeah. It reflects the complex realities of family life today.
Absolutely. And hopefully this deep dive has given everyone listening a much clearer picture of this benefit, a bit of a shortcut through all the legal jargon.
Hopefully. And it does make you think, doesn't it, about the bigger picture.
How so?
Well, what do policies like this actually say about our society's values? Regarding work-life balance, support for different kinds of families.
That's a great point. And are there other ways workplaces could adapt, maybe even beyond what the law requires for solo parents?
Exactly. Lots to consider there.
Definitely food for thought. And if you are interested in digging even deeper, getting into the absolute nitty-gritty.
You'd want to look up the actual laws. Republic Act number 8972, which was amended by Republic Act number 11661, and their implementing rules and regulations.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.
My pleasure.